Okay. And so obviously, I think one of the other things that running by yourself does in repetitions is it avoids the distraction of worrying about what the other person's doing. So it means that you can focus on yourself a little bit more, and then you can probably think a little bit more about your technique and your mechanics and how you're moving. And with sort of respect to that, what are some technical cues that you feel are important for you that have sort of clicked, resonated, that you feel have made an improvement to the way that you run?
Oh, you're testing me here.
Yeah, it's a loaded question.
The beauty between the relationship that John and I have is that I word things and he just understands exactly what I'm saying, and he knows exactly like how to articulate whatever mumbo jumbo is coming out of my mouth. So say I'll do a rep and I'll go, oh, I felt blah, 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 blah. Do you know what I mean? And he's like, yeah. So what you're saying is this. And I'm like, yes, that's what I mean. So I'm going to try and explain what, like, I guess, what I think and how I want to feel in order to set myself up for a good rep.
Yeah, perfect.
Let's try. Let's see how I go.
Yeah, cool. So, I'm looking forward to this.
I guess my main thing is, and every rep that I do, or every competition that I race at or whatever, standing in the blocks, I'll always mark out like 50 meters, 40 to 50 meters. And my main like objective in those 40 to 50 meters is that like I don't want to be up by any means before I get to, you know, the 40 to 50. So like stay down, accelerate, keep driving, keep building. As soon as I get to like 40, 50, that's when I start to like gear change and slowly like transition into my upright. And then I'll kind of hold that for 50 to 70, 80, and then another gear change and just kick home. I really need to focus on, and something that I've had to be very mindful of is getting too upright and bouncy, which I tend to do with the vest a lot because, you know, it is quite heavy. So I'm like trying to, you know,
push yourself up.
Push myself back up. Yeah. And then sometimes, so I'll do that. And then sometimes I'll do a rep after that and I feel quite bouncy. And John's like, I don't want you to be bouncing around on the track. Like I really need you to drive and keep, especially in that last like 20 to 30 meters, like really just keep pushing into the ground. Whereas I'm like, I feel so pretty, and start getting into like, John calls it like pretty running. Like it looks really nice. And he's like, you look great. And it's like light and everything, but he's like, I don't want you to be light and pretty. Like I need you to be fucking plowing through the ground.
Yeah.
But I just find that if I set up that, because I think the acceleration is probably my strongest part of my race. I feel like if I come out of the blocks and set that up as best as I possibly can, and, you know, stay down and keep driving and just keep building, that's when, you know, I hit some really great top speeds. And that's when I find that the rest of the rep or the race just feels short. That's kind of, I try and make it feel as short as possible. And the way that I do that is to, you know, stay low for as long as possible and build, you know, keep building up to, you know, that top speed that I know that I can get to. The races that don't go so well are when I come out of that acceleration phase. And then, you know, I look up and I'm like, holy shit, it's 30 and I've still got 70 to go and I'm up. And, you know, this is what I'm working with. Because I'm more of like a 60-100 athlete as opposed to a 100-200. So it's harder for me to find anything in that back end. So, you know, once I'm up, that's, you know, that's what I'm working with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. I think that like once once you've hit top speed, you can't go any faster. So you've got two options.
Yeah.
Either you maintain that top speed or you're going to decelerate. And you can only maintain top speed for a certain period of time anyway, probably a couple of seconds anyway. So the earlier you come out of your acceleration, then the more you're leaving yourself open to decelerating. So if you can prolong that acceleration, then you're just minimizing that period of drop off kind of in the later part of the race. So yeah, no, that absolutely makes sense. I mean,
and see, that's a really great way to put exactly what I've just said.
Yeah, I mean, it makes complete sense to me. And I've heard other coaches sort of talk about the kind of the job of the start and the job of the acceleration is to set up the race. And I feel like that's kind of what you're talking about as well, that you're just using that to basically put you at a good top speed, but also have you hit that good top speed at a particular point in the race where you're not going to lead yourself to that high top speed to decay off too much as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find when I like I said, when I do a really good 40 or 50, say, at training, then I know that the rest of it is going to come quite easily to me personally. So say the 80 runs from a 3-point, I'll do a 40, start to come out of it, and then I just go bang, like it just, the gear change happens, it's all very natural, and it comes quite easily. And then, if you're doing 100, like there's just another 20, you find another gear change. But yeah, I think that really setting up that first 40 to 50 to me is crucial for me personally.
Yeah, okay. All right, cool. And then how closely are you monitoring things like, so this is, I'm talking like this was just another part of the same question. It's absolutely not a complete subject change. But how closely are you monitoring things like sleep and nutrition? So you spoke at the beginning back in part 1 about how you potentially sort of underfueled and stuff like that. So it's obviously something that you consider. Can you maybe kind of elaborate a little bit on how you're managing those lifestyle factors?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that that I do manage quite closely now. We've got a new dietitian on board who has just, like, when I tell you that she's changed my life, not just on the track, but just as a person, she's really been amazing. And I won't go into it too much, but like I said, I was underfueling for a very long time leading into Japan, and then after, I find that, and this is a whole nother topic in itself, but I just found I was putting a lot of internal pressure on myself to, look a certain way and be a certain way. Right. And yeah, it got really quite unhealthy. And I think that was presenting itself, in like tendon injuries and all that sort of stuff.
Okay.
And I was in a state of red S, which is, and I don't know if you know what that is, or people listening, but relative energy deficiency syndrome, where essentially, like, I just was not eating enough.
Okay.
Yeah, right. So I wasn't fueling myself enough to actually keep up with the energy demands of my training and stuff. Okay. And anyway, got a new dietitian on board, and it's just been incredible. Like, we were on in a big calorie surplus for a long time because I just needed to get my metabolic rate back up. We did heaps of bone density scans and stuff like that, which everything was fine, which is good, amazing. But yeah, I just had a really suppressed metabolism essentially. So we've been working really hard to get that back up, and we're doing really well. And I just have so much more energy. Like, it was really hard because I, throwing in full-time teaching into the mix plus training, and I really didn't change my diet to support any of the extra energy that I was obviously utilizing. I just, I'd made no adjustments and was still expecting to be able to function. And, I'd get to training and I had no energy for it. This was in 2022, sorry. Now completely different person. So that's been great. And I have enough energy for things, and, even enough energy to socialize and talk to my housemates, and which I had none of that earlier. So it's just made me realize the importance of, you know, fueling yourself properly. And, you know, as an athlete, we're burning so much. So just fueling yourself with the right things, which I always was doing, just, not enough, I suppose. And more like intuitive eating and a lot more food freedom now, you know, what I'm allowed, what I can eat, or what I thought that I wasn't allowed to eat, which were things that I just made up in my head. Things like sleep. I'm pretty like regular with my sleeping now as well, having, you know, a more, I guess, regular diet and food intake has made me sleep a whole lot better. It's affected so many different aspects of my life. And now we've started doing the Omega Way, which which I'm not sure if you're aware of, or people listening, but essentially it's a reading that I do every morning, and it measures like my central nervous system, cardiac system, my DC potential. That's the main thing that John looks at.
What's the DC potential?
That's direct current potential. So don't ask me what that is.
No problem. No, I've not heard of it. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I just know what a really good reading is. So sitting around, like, I don't know, anywhere from 15 up to 25, I guess, is like really good. And then I've been in the negatives before, you know.
Oh, wow.
And it's really interesting. Yeah, it's really interesting for me after a really intense, like high intensity speed session. The next morning, my central nervous system, my DC potential is like right up. Like my body just thrives on that. As soon as I have a rest day, like the following day, it just it plummets, which has been really interesting.
So you're getting better readings the day after you've done a speed session than the day after
the
a rest
day after
day?
I've done a speed session. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like my body and, you know, my brain and stuff, they're like firing. And then when I've had a rest day, and look, it makes sense, I guess, when you think about it. And a lot of people, you know, after that really intense session, people that also do the Omega Wave reading, they're quite flat, which makes sense. And then after a rest day, they bring them back up. But I feel like, on the contrary, it also makes sense because after an intense session, I'm like firing and my brain is really on and I'm really tuned in. So it only makes sense that my reading the next morning is like a reflection of that. And then after a rest day, it's like, you know, everything relaxes. And then I'm well rested, and I wake up the next day a little bit like, ooh, airy fairy. So I feel like that also makes sense. And it works for me. And, you know, there are some days when my reading's super low, but I still smash out a great session. Or there are some days when, you know, my readings are great and like I might not feel that on for a session, but it's just interesting to have that information.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that the other thing, that the impression that I get with John's training as well, is he's not trying to thrash you with loads and loads of work when you're training. So it's and maybe that's kind of reflected in the recovery scores as well, that, you know, that you're still feeling like quite primed and quite good the next day. Do you find that the recovery scores kind of coincide with when you feel like you've had a good sleep? So you kind of you wake up and think, oh, I slept really well last night, and then can you sort of like marry that up with the data that you're getting?
Yeah, but it's really interesting because sometimes I'll have an amazing sleep. Like last night, I had like a 10-hour sleep, and, you know, I'm coming off the back of COVID, so I'm still like a little bit lethargic, I guess. Had an amazing 10-hour sleep, and then woke up and my reading, I was probably at like 50% this morning. So I don't know if it's like, and I do mine in the morning because that, you know, that suits me better. It'd be interesting to see, like, after a day of, you know, being stimulated and you know, using my brain and things like that, how, like, what the reading would be in the evening after a good sleep. Sometimes I find after a good sleep I wake up and I'm like, holy shit. Whereas, you know, if I wake up a little bit earlier, say at 6, and I do the reading at 7:30, then my brain's already been a little bit stimulated. So even if I've had a poor sleep, my reading's a little bit better. I don't know, it's really interesting. And sometimes it also gives an explanation, like if I've got a training session and, you know, John's giving me a cue and I'm sort of struggling to pick up on it, or like my skill acquisition isn't there, we'll kind of look at the Amiga reading and go, oh yeah, your DC potential was really quite low today. It kind of doesn't give a reason as to why, but it kind of might be a little bit of an explanation as to why. Acquisition side of things is a little bit trickier today. Or if it's really low, then he might take something out of a session because I don't, like, mentally, or my brain isn't quite ready for it. But again, that's sort of all the behind the scenes stuff that he manages.
Okay, so I'm familiar with Amiga Wave, like, but I've never used it, so I don't know. How do you actually take the reading? What do you have to do to?
So there's a strap that goes around, like, underneath.
Right. Okay.
Chest.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then you've got little pads that you stick to your hand and your head. And so you attach it to, you attach it to the strap, to your pad, to your head, to your forehead. And then there's an app on your phone. Essentially, you start measuring and you lie still for 5 minutes, and as still as possible. And I don't know what it's doing in there, but it's measuring some sort of current that's going through you. And then you get a really, like, descriptive reading of your brain and whatever it's doing.
Okay. All right. Cool. Interesting.
It is really interesting. There's quite a few
I bet it is.
I can use it now.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I've got one last question for you, and this is just a little bit of a fun one. So 2 parts. So the first part is, what is your favorite track workout? So you see it on the piece of paper that you got that today, and you're like, yes, I'm looking forward to this. This is fun. I can't wait.
Yeah. I'm so funny because I honestly reckon that this changes every week. Like, I'll do a session and it'll go really well, and I'm like, that's my favorite.
Right. Okay.
Or, going into, say, like, the longer stuff, I don't really enjoy that much. If I, like, my ideal session would be, the block and sled session. I really, really like that because it's hard, and I like the short speed, fast stuff. The 4 150s, not so much. But then, in saying that, I feel like I get the biggest high after those sessions. They flatten me, but then, the endorphins that you get after a session where you're doing 4 to 5 150s, it's like no other. It's like, half an hour ago you were absolutely dead. Now I'm driving to the gym, blasting music with the windows down, being like, yeah.
I like that delayed gratification. I like it that you can sort of see the bigger picture. You can see, like, the long-term benefit, even if like doing the session itself might not be so much fun. Exactly.
And during the session, don't get me wrong, it's hard. And more often than not, especially now coming to the summer, people are, spewing between reps and things like that. But that feeling that you get after it, I love it. I love that session for that feeling. And, when there's 11 of us, like, flattened on the track, it's just awesome. Like, I love it for that. But then for, like, the technical side of things, I really like the Monday, Friday session, the short, sharp, fast sessions. They're my creme de la creme.
Creme de la creme.
And I guess because they're also my strength, I guess. So, I mean, you love doing things that you're good at.
Absolutely. And so my sort of flip side was, what would be your least favorite track session? But it kind of sounds like you don't really have one that you absolutely dread.
Yeah, no.
Or you can find a positive in the one that you do like the least, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. I can always find a positive, and
that's a good skill.
And I guess it also sort of depends on the way that I'm feeling. Like, sometimes, I wake up on a Monday and I'm like, oh God, I really don't feel ready to go super fast tonight. So then that'll be like my pit session for the week. So yeah, it all really just depends. But there's not one session that I don't like. And John, that doesn't mean that I want to do heaps more 150s. But yeah, like like you said, and it sounds really cliche and might sound a little bit lame, but there's a positive in every session, and like, we're getting the most out of ourselves in every session, and I reckon that's fucking awesome, really.
Yeah, good. Yeah, you've given a personal message to our only listener, I reckon. Just there.
Hey John, shout out.
So yeah, finishing up. Actually, is there anybody that you want to give a shout out to? Anybody at all?
Probably, well, I was going to say John, but he's gotten plenty, far more than enough shout outs. But no, he really is, like, I wouldn't be the athlete or the person that I am really without him. So he's earned all the shout outs that, you know, I give him and that we all give him. Shout out to Ayla if she's listening. I'm so grateful that I'm following in her footsteps. Is she going to be the episode before this?
She is, yeah.
See, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like the fact that I'm,
It's
you know,
destiny.
on the same wavelength as her. I think that that's really cool. So I hope she's listening to my episode because I'll be listening to hers. And another shout out, maybe just another shout out to my track squad, the Mad Track Squad. I'm going to force all of them to listen to this because I don't know how many, they're probably sick of the Hana podcasts really, but I'm going to make them listening to this one.
All 3
Shout out to
episodes.
Michael specifically.
Okay, cool. I'll make sure that I throw the Mad Track Squad's Instagram handle in the show notes as well. That's how techie I am. I even know how to write show notes.
Yeah. No, they'd love that. And there's some really great quality content on there. We've got sorry, I won't keep you too much longer. But
no.
Mia Gross, who joined our squad last year.
And she had a good year last year, didn't she?
Had an amazing year last year. She went to Com Games for the 4x1, but she's had a few niggles lately, but she's bought this like professional camera. So she's the one that's been coming down to all our sessions.
Oh, really?
Finally getting content because, like, I don't know, I never have anything to post or anything, and now finally we are taking content. So
Beats you just running around with a phone.
Yeah. That's the content that I get.
Okay, all right, cool. And so I know you said you don't post anything, but where can people find you on social media? What social media are on your handles?
Find me on my very boring social media that I always delete and then re-add and then delete and re-add.
Right.
But it's Hanbasic, HANBASIC. That's probably the main one that I use.
That's Instagram.
And that's Instagram, and I haven't posted since August, so don't expect too much on there.
We're doing the 6-month post soon. All right. Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, it's my anniversary. Yeah, it'll be coming soon.
All right, there we go. All right, Hannah. Well, it's been brilliant speaking to you. Thank you so much for sharing so much insight for all the listeners. And just want to wish you the best for 2023 and your upcoming season. All right.
Thank you. Thanks for listening, guys.
All right. Take care.